I saw my son's wife let another man's hand rest on her thigh at the rehearsal dinner, and I knew the wedding would end badly. Just didn't know it would be my face taking the hit. The thing about humiliation is that it doesn't arrive with trumpets. It sidles up quiet, wearing a nice dress and holding champagne, and then it kicks you in the teeth while everyone watches. That's what happened to me on a Friday night in November, at my son Evan's wedding, on a rooftop in Portland with 200 witnesses and a photographer who got the whole thing in 4K. My name is Arthur Lang. I'm 57 years old. I taught English literature for 30 years, and I raised 2 kids by myself after my wife died of cancer when they were 12 and 9. I did a decent job of it, or so I thought. Evan graduated college. Clara got her MBA. Both of them went off into the world and built lives that didn't include much room for me. That's fine. That's what you do as a parent. You raise them to leave. But you don't raise them to forget where they came from. And you sure as hell don't raise them to marry someone like Marissa Vale. The wedding was one of those aggressively elegant affairs where everything costs too much and nobody's really happy. White flowers everywhere, string quartet playing something boring, open bar with signature cocktails named after the happy couple, Evan's old-fashioned and Marissa's mule. I drank 3 of mine and wondered how long I had to stay before I could slip out without causing offense. My apartment was 40 minutes away. Small place, 1 bedroom, clean but cramped. Teacher's pension doesn't stretch far in Portland, especially when you spent most of your savings on your wife's medical bills and then on college tuition for 2 kids who barely call anymore. Evan looked nervous in his tuxedo. He kept tugging at his collar like it was strangling him. Maybe it was. Marissa had picked everything, the venue, the flowers, the menu, probably the vows too. She was 27 years old and had the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Smile that never reached her eyes. She worked in marketing for her father's real estate development company, which meant she was good at making things look better than they were. She'd made Evan look successful. He worked for her father now, too, in acquisitions. Big title, decent salary. But everyone knew he got the job by marrying the boss's daughter. That ate at him, I could tell. He'd always been sensitive about being underestimated. Clara was a bridesmaid, standing up there in a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She caught my eye once during the ceremony and gave me a tight smile. We hadn't talked much in the last year. She was busy with her consulting job, traveling constantly. That's what she said anyway. The ceremony went off without problems. They said their vows, kissed, walked back down the aisle while everyone clapped. Then we all moved to the reception area. Same rooftop, different configuration. The city spread out below us, lights twinkling like everything was beautiful and nothing hurt. I found my assigned seat at table 12. Not the family table, not even close to it. I was wedged between Marissa's great-aunt Dorothy, who was deaf in one ear, and a college friend of Evan's whose name I immediately forgot. The centerpiece blocked my view of the head table where my son sat with his new wife. Fine, I could take a hint. Dinner was surf and turf, the steak was good. I ate slowly, making it last, because I knew what came after dinner. Speeches. And I had a bad feeling about those speeches. I was right to worry. The best man went first, some guy from Evan's fraternity, who told a story about a drinking contest that wasn't as funny as he thought it was. Clara went next, giving a sweet but generic toast about love and partnership. Then Marissa's father stood up, his face already red from the cocktails, and talked about how proud he was to welcome Evan into the family business, into the family, into their lives. Evan's a self-made man, he said, and I nearly choked on my wine. Self-made, sure. If you didn't count the 4 years of tuition I paid, or the car I co-signed for, or the security deposit I loaned him for his first apartment that he never paid back. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when Marissa stood up. She looked radiant in her dress. Had to give her that. The photographer's flash popped constantly as she raised her glass and smiled at the crowd. "I want to thank everyone for coming," she said. Her voice carried across the rooftop without effort. She was good at commanding attention. Evan and I are so grateful to have you all here to celebrate with us. She went on for a minute about love and destiny and other wedding cliches. I started to relax. Maybe I'd been paranoid. Maybe she'd leave me out of it entirely. And of course, I have to thank Evan's family, Marissa continued. She turned toward our table, gesturing vaguely in my direction. His father Arthur drove all the way from his apartment across town to be here. There was polite laughter. Across town, like I lived in another state instead of 40 minutes away. Arthur's been so supportive, she said, and something in her tone made my stomach clench. He's taught us a lot about resilience, about making do with less, about living within your means. More laughter, but it had an edge now. People were picking up on something. In fact, Arthur lives in such a cozy little studio apartment. It's really more of an efficiency, isn't it, Arthur? That we've all learned valuable lessons about minimalism from him. My face was burning. The photographer swung his camera toward me. I could feel 200 pairs of eyes landing on my table. We even joked about having Arthur downsize a bit more, Marissa said, her smile never wavering. Maybe get a storage unit for some of those old books, or... And here she paused for effect. Maybe he could just give Evan the keys now, since we'll probably inherit the place eventually anyway. The room went silent. Then someone laughed nervously. Then more people joined in, because they didn't know what else to do. I sat there, frozen, while Marissa basked in her moment. She'd done it so smoothly that most people probably thought it was just wedding banter, a little roast, nothing serious. But I knew better. She'd just told everyone in that room that I was poor, that I was irrelevant, that I was already dead in terms of family importance. And Evan just sat there. Didn't defend me, didn't even look uncomfortable. He was smiling along with everyone else. Marissa raised her glass higher. To family, she said, to new beginnings, and to always remembering where we came from so we know where we're going. Everyone drank. I didn't. I couldn't move. The speeches wrapped up. Music started. People began dancing. I stayed in my seat, staring at my empty plate, trying to decide if I should leave now or wait until it wouldn't be so obvious. Then Marissa appeared beside my chair. Up close, her perfume was overwhelming, something expensive and floral that probably cost more than my electric bill. "Arthur," she said brightly, too brightly. "Did you enjoy the speech?" I looked up at her. It was memorable. Good. She leaned down and her voice dropped low enough that only I could hear. "You know, I was actually serious about the keys. Evan and I have been talking, and we think it would be better for everyone if you moved into something smaller, more manageable for a man your age. We could help you find a nice senior living facility." My hands clenched under the table. "I'm 57, not 77. "Still," she said, "it would be responsible, and it would free up some assets that Evan could really use right now. We're looking at buying a bigger house, and family should help family, don't you think?" She wasn't asking. She was telling, and she was doing it here now in front of everyone because she wanted me to know she had all the power. "No," I said quietly. Her smile disappeared. "Excuse me?" I said no. My apartment is mine. I'm not giving you the keys, and I'm not moving into some facility so you can cash out whatever you think I'm worth. Marissa straightened up. Her expression went cold. "Evan," she called out, her voice sharp. "Evan, come here." My son appeared within seconds. He'd been hovering nearby, I realized, waiting for this. "Your father is being difficult," Marissa said. She said it loud enough that people at nearby tables turned to look. "We had a simple request, and he's refusing to be reasonable." Evan looked at me. There was something in his eyes, shame, maybe, or guilt, but he didn't let it stop him. "Dad," he said, "we've talked about this. You don't need a whole apartment. You're barely scraping by as it is. This would be better for you." "You want me to give up my home?" I said flatly. We want you to be practical, Marissa cut in. And honestly, Arthur, after everything Evan has done for you. Everything he's done for me? I almost laughed. I raised him. I put him through school. That was your job, Marissa said. Her voice could have cut glass. That's what parents do. You don't get a medal for basic responsibility. People were definitely watching now. The music seemed quieter. Even the bartender had stopped pouring drinks. Dad, just think about it, Evan said. He sounded tired. We're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to help. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. You want to help me? Then tell your wife to stop humiliating me at your wedding. Marissa stepped closer. We were nearly face to face. You're humiliating yourself, she said quietly. A grown man clinging to a tiny apartment he can barely afford, refusing to make sensible choices. That's embarrassing, Arthur. For all of us. And that's when it happened. I'm still not entirely sure why, whether it was the wine, or the exhaustion, or just 30 years of biting my tongue finally breaking through. But I said the thing I'd been thinking since the rehearsal dinner. I know about Greg, I said. Marissa's face went white. Just for a second. Then the mask came back, but I'd seen it slip. What did you say? I saw you. Last night. At the club. With Greg Patterson. Evan's business partner. The guy with the expensive watch and the shark smile. I saw his hand on your leg. I saw you lean into him. I saw... The slap came out of nowhere. Hard enough that my head snapped to the side. Hard enough that my vision blurred. The sound cracked across the rooftop like a gunshot. Silence. Complete, total silence. I touched my cheek. It was already hot, already swelling. Marissa stood there with her hand still raised, breathing hard, her face flushed with rage. You're a liar, she said. Her voice shook. You're a sad, pathetic liar, and you're trying to ruin my wedding because you can't stand seeing Evan happy. I looked past her at my son. He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not shock, not anger. Something worse. Something like disgust. Dad, he said softly, you should go. Not, are you okay? Not, what the hell, Marissa? Just, you should go. Clara had appeared at his side. She looked horrified, but when I met her eyes, she looked away. Yeah, I said. My voice came out steady somehow. Yeah, I should. I walked toward the exit. Every step felt like walking through water. 200 people watched me leave. I could hear whispers starting up behind me, a wave of scandal and judgment. The photographer was definitely still shooting. By tomorrow, this would be everywhere. I made it to the elevator. Made it down to the parking garage, made it into my car before my hands started shaking. I sat there in the dark, touching my face where she'd hit me, and I thought about what came next. I could go home, crawl into bed, pretend this never happened, let them win, or I could make a phone call. I pulled out my cell and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I wanted. Ray Doyle. I'd taught him 15 years ago. Smart kid. Too smart, maybe. He'd gone into business for himself after college, the kind of business that didn't advertise and didn't keep regular hours, the kind of business you called when you needed things fixed. The phone rang 3 times, then his voice, rough and low. Mr. Lang? Ray, I said. I need a favor. There was a pause. Then, what kind of favor? I told him. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? Ray Doyle showed up at my apartment 2 days later, just after sunset. I'd spent those 2 days watching my humiliation go viral. Someone had posted video of the slap. It had 3 million views. The comments were split between people calling me a creepy old man and people calling Marissa a bridezilla. Nobody came out looking good, but I came out looking pathetic. Evan hadn't called. Clara had once to tell me I owed Marissa an apology. I'd hung up on her. When Ray knocked, I was sitting in the dark with a glass of whiskey I hadn't touched. I let him in and flipped on a lamp. He looked different than I remembered. Older, obviously. He had to be in his mid-30s now, but also harder. He wore a black jacket over a gray sweater, dark jeans, boots that looked like they'd walked through some rough places. His hair was cut military short. His eyes were the same, though. Sharp, calculating. The eyes of someone who saw 3 moves ahead. "Mr. Lang," he said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "Been a while." 15 years. You look good, Ray." "You look like someone hit you." I touched my cheek automatically. The swelling had gone down, but the bruise was spectacular, purple and yellow, impossible to hide. "You saw the video." Everyone saw the video. He stepped past me into the apartment, taking it in with a quick glance. "Small place. It's enough. Not for them, apparently." He turned back to me. "So, you want to hurt your daughter-in-law? That what this is about?" "No," I said. "I meant it. I don't want to hurt anyone. I want them to understand what they did. I want consequences." Ray sat down on my couch without being invited. He had that kind of confidence, the kind that came from never being afraid of anything. Consequences. That's a teacher word. What does it mean in practical terms? I sat across from him. "I want them exposed. Marissa's affair with Greg Patterson. The fact that she's been embezzling from her father's company to cover her shopping addiction. The fact that Evan knows about all of it and doesn't care because he's too weak to stand up to her." "You have proof?" "Some. Bank statements I shouldn't have access to but do. Photos from the rehearsal dinner. Phone records." "How'd you get those?" I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I taught cybersecurity classes online for extra money the last few years. Turns out, I learned a few things." Ray leaned back, studying me. "You break into their accounts?" "I observed their accounts. There's a difference." "Not legally, there isn't. I don't plan on using anything illegal in court. I plan on using it to make them sweat. To make them tear each other apart. To give them the same feeling they gave me, being powerless while everyone watches." Ray was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I don't do murder. I'm not asking for murder. I don't do permanent damage. I'm not asking for that either. What are you asking for?" I told him my plan. All of it. The steps, the timing, the psychological pressure points. Ray listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat there thinking. "It could work," he said finally. "But it's complicated. Lots of moving parts. Lots of ways it could blow up in your face." "I know. If this goes wrong, you could lose your kids forever. Not just for a few years. Forever." "I already lost them," I said quietly. "They chose her over me. They watched her hit me and told me to leave. Whatever relationship we had, it died on that rooftop." Ray nodded slowly. "Okay, but I have conditions." "Name them." "1. Nobody gets physically hurt, not seriously. No hospitals, no broken bones. If it comes to violence, I control how far it goes." "Agreed." 2. If at any point this crosses into criminal territory, real criminal, not just borderline, I'm out. You're on your own." "Fair enough." 3. You pay my expenses. I'm not doing this for money, but I'm not going broke doing you a favor either." "How much?" He named a figure. It was steep, but not impossible. I'd been saving for a new car. That could wait. "Done," I said. Ray stood up and held out his hand. "Then we have a deal. When do we start?" "Tomorrow. There's a family dinner at Evan's house. Marissa's idea. She wants to clear the air after the wedding incident. She posted about it on social media. Public reconciliation. She wants to humiliate you again. Probably. But it's also an opportunity to plant the first seed." Ray smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. I always liked your class, Mr. Lang. You taught us that the best revenge isn't hot. It's cold, it's patient, it's calculated. I taught you Hamlet. Same thing. He left a few minutes later. I sat in my apartment for a long time after he was gone, looking at the picture of my wife on the bookshelf. Sarah. She'd been gone 11 years now. They needed me to be strong. So I was. But Sarah would have known what to do about this. She would have found the right words to reach Evan and Clara, to make them see what they were becoming. She always knew how to fix things. I didn't have her gift. All I had was anger and a plan. I picked up the whiskey and finally took a drink. They took the apartment. Of course they did. Marissa tried to play it cool for a few days, but the temptation was too much. Free rent, central location, and, most importantly, a chance to prove she wasn't afraid of me, that she could take my olive branch and turn it into a victory. She didn't realize it was a trap. Ray helped me move my essential things into a storage unit. Not much, some clothes, my books, my wife's picture, a few personal items, everything else I left in the apartment, the furniture, the kitchen stuff, the decorations. I wanted Evan and Marissa to feel at home, comfortable, unsuspecting. Clara's place was smaller than I expected, a one-bedroom condo, endearing. She gave me the bedroom and took the couch, which made me feel guilty until I remembered she'd sided with Marissa at the wedding. Still, she was letting me stay. That meant something. "This is temporary, right?" she asked the night I moved in. We were unpacking my suitcase in her bedroom. "You're not actually giving up your apartment?" "The lease agreement is for 6 months. After that, we renegotiate." "Dad, what are you really doing?" I looked at my daughter. She had Sarah's eyes, green, intelligent, always searching for the truth underneath the surface. "I'm giving your brother a chance to see who he married." "By what? Spying on them?" "By letting them be themselves. People show you who they really are when they think nobody's watching." Clara sat on the bed. "You're scaring me. This isn't like you." "Maybe it is like me. Maybe you just never saw this side before." She didn't have an answer to that. Evan and Marissa moved in the following week. I dropped off the keys personally, handed them over with a smile and a handshake. Marissa was polite but cold. Evan looked uncomfortable. Neither of them noticed the small cameras I'd installed in the smoke detectors and the thermostat. Before you judge me, understand something. I didn't do this lightly. I'm not a voyeur. I'm not interested in watching people sleep or shower or any of that invasive nonsense. I pointed the cameras at public spaces only, the living room, the kitchen, the entryway, places where conversations happened, where truth lived, and I made sure everything I did was just barely legal. Recordings in your own property? Gray area, but defensible, especially if you have it in the lease agreement, buried in paragraph 14, subsection C. Owner retains right to monitor property condition through remote sensing devices. Ray had helped me word it. "They won't read that far," he'd said. "Nobody reads the whole lease." He was right. Marissa signed without looking past page 2. The first week, nothing interesting happened. They unpacked. They argued about where to put furniture. Marissa complained about the shower pressure, normal domestic stuff. The second week, Greg Patterson showed up. I was at Clara's place, watching the live feed on my laptop, when Greg walked through my apartment door like he owned it. He was carrying a bottle of wine and wearing expensive jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. Marissa greeted him with a hug that lasted too long. Evan wasn't home yet. Greg Patterson came after me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was leaving Clara's condo, heading to my car, when he appeared from behind a parked van. His face was red, his eyes wild. He'd been drinking. "You," he said, pointing at me. "You sent that video." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Bullshit." He grabbed my jacket, slammed me against the car. "My wife left me. She took my kids. She's going for full custody. All because of you. All because you were sleeping with your business partner's wife." His fist caught me in the stomach. I doubled over, gasping. He hit me again, this time in the ribs. Pain exploded across my chest. I went down on one knee. "Not so tough now, are you?" Greg pulled back for another punch. Ray Doyle appeared out of nowhere. 1 second, Greg was standing over me. The next, he was on the ground, Ray's knee on his back, his arm twisted at an angle that made him scream. "That's enough," Ray said calmly, like he was discussing the weather. "You touch Mr. Lang again, I break something important. Understand?" Greg nodded frantically. Ray let him up. Greg stumbled away, clutching his arm, shooting me a look of pure hatred. Ray helped me stand. "You okay?" "Been better." My ribs hurt like hell. "Thanks for the timing. I've been watching your back since this started. Can't have you getting killed before we finish." He looked at me seriously. "But this proves my point. This is getting dangerous." "I can handle it." "Can you? Because from where I'm standing, you just got assaulted in broad daylight. What happens when Marissa figures out you're behind everything? You think she'll just take it?" I straightened up, wincing. "She won't figure it out. I've been careful." "Nobody's that careful." But he was wrong. Because 2 days later my apartment burned down. Not literally, but the metaphorical fire was just as devastating. I got the call from Evan at 6 in the morning. "Dad, the apartment flooded. A pipe burst. Everything's ruined." "Flooded?" I was already pulling on clothes, heading for the door. "How bad?" "Bad. The whole bathroom, half the living room. Marissa's furious. We can't stay here." When I got there, fire trucks and a water damage crew were already on scene. Water poured out from under my front door, cascading down the stairs. Evan stood in the hallway, soaking wet, looking miserable. "What happened?" I asked. "I don't know. We woke up to water everywhere. The bathroom pipe just exploded." I pushed past him into the apartment. The damage was extensive. Water covered the floors, soaking into the carpet, the furniture, everything. My books, my beautiful books, my collection built over 30 years, were destroyed. Pages swollen, covers warped. Marissa emerged from the bedroom, also soaked, mascara running down her face. When she saw me, her expression turned venomous. "This is your fault," she said. "How is a burst pipe my fault? This whole apartment is falling apart. You knew the plumbing was bad, you knew it, and you let us move in anyway. The plumbing was inspected 6 months ago. It was fine." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You sabotaged this. You want us to fail. You want Evan to leave me and come crawling back to you. That's insane." "Is it? Greg's marriage fell apart after he visited us here. Now this. You're trying to destroy my life." A uniformed cop appeared in the doorway. "Folks, we need everyone out. This unit's not safe until the water's shut off properly." We evacuated to the parking lot. Evan went to talk to the building manager. Marissa stayed behind, glaring at me. "I know what you are," she said quietly. "You're a bitter old man who can't stand that he's irrelevant. But you know what? You are irrelevant, Arthur. You're nothing. And when this is over, Evan and I will make sure you never see your grandchildren. Not now, not ever." Grandchildren. She was pregnant. She dropped that bomb like it was nothing, just another weapon to hurt me with. "Congratulations," I managed. She smiled. It was the cruelest smile I'd ever seen. "We weren't going to tell you, but I guess now you know what you're losing." She walked away. I stood there in the parking lot, watching the water damage crew work, and felt something inside me shift. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about survival, about making sure that when Evan finally woke up and saw what Marissa really was, he wouldn't hate me for trying to show him. Ray called 20 minutes later. "I heard about the flood." "How?" "I know people. What happened?" I told him about the pipe, the damage, Marissa's accusation. "She's right," I said. "I did sabotage it." Silence on the other end. Then, "Come again?" "Not the pipe, but the rest of it. The recordings, the videos, Greg's marriage falling apart." That was all me, and she knows it. Arthur. I need to move faster, before she convinces Evan to cut me off completely, before I lose my son forever. You're talking about escalating. I'm talking about finishing this. The gala. Marissa's father is hosting that real estate development gala next month, right? The big charity event? Yeah. Black tie. 500 guests. Very high profile. I want to be there, and I want to make sure everyone sees who Marissa really is. How? I told him. Ray listened. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. That could work, he finally said. But it's risky. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. I've planned every detail. That's what worries me. You sound like someone who's past caring about consequences. I already lost everything that matters, Ray. What's left to lose? He didn't have an answer to that. The call came 3 days later. Evan. I almost didn't answer. But something, guilt, hope, curiosity, made me pick up. Dad. His voice was flat, empty. We need to talk. Where? The coffee shop on Congress Street, 1 hour. He hung up. I drove there in a daze. Hadn't slept properly in days. Kept replaying the gala in my head, wondering if I'd gone too far. Wondering if Ray was right about my motives. Evan was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. I sat down across from him. Evan, don't. He held up a hand. Just don't. Let me talk first. I waited. Marissa's gone. She left the day after the gala, took what money she had left and disappeared. Her father's filing charges for the embezzlement. Greg Patterson's in rehab. Linda cleaned him out in the divorce, and he apparently had a breakdown. And me? Evan laughed bitterly. I'm a joke. Everyone at work knows my wife was cheating. My boss suggested I take a leave of absence to deal with personal issues. Polite way of saying I'm fired. I'm sorry. Are you? He finally looked at me. Are you really? Because it seems like this is exactly what you wanted. I wanted you to see the truth about her. You wanted revenge. Against Marissa. Against me for siding with her. Against Clara for not standing up for you. You wanted to burn everything down because you were hurt. He leaned forward. And you know what? You succeeded. Everything's burned. My marriage, my career, my reputation. All of it. Gone. She was stealing from her father, Evan. She was cheating on you. I didn't make her do those things. No, but you orchestrated the reveal. You spent months planning this, manipulating us, playing games. What kind of father does that? I didn't have an answer. I loved her, Evan said quietly. I know she wasn't perfect. I know she treated you badly. But I loved her, Dad, and you took that away from me. She would have destroyed you eventually. Maybe, or maybe we would have figured it out, gone to counseling, fixed things. But now I'll never know, because you didn't give us a chance. He stood up. Clara and I talked. We both agree. We don't want you in our lives anymore. Not until you get help. Real help. Therapy, medication, whatever it takes. Because the man who did what you did, that's not our father. That's someone we don't recognize. He walked out. I sat there for a long time, staring at his untouched coffee, feeling something crack inside my chest. This was it. The moment I'd feared. The moment I'd known was coming but hoped somehow wouldn't. I'd won. I'd exposed Marissa. I'd gotten my revenge. And I'd lost everything. 3 weeks later, I got an email from a real estate lawyer. The apartment building, my old building where I'd lived for 20 years, was being sold. The new owners were converting it to condos. All existing tenants would be bought out at market rate. The payout was substantial. More money than I'd seen in years. Enough to start over somewhere new. Somewhere nobody knew me or what I'd done. I met with the lawyer the next day. Signed the papers. The check would arrive in 2 weeks. That night, I drove past the building. It was late, Nearly midnight, but I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about all the years I'd spent there, raising the kids after Sarah died, teaching them to cook, to do laundry, to be independent, reading bedtime stories, helping with homework, the mundane, beautiful routine of being a parent. The building was dark except for a few windows. My old apartment, Evan and Marissa's apartment, technically, until the flood, was empty now. Condemned. Water damage had been worse than initially reported. Nobody had lived there since. I parked across the street and just looked at it. This place that held so many memories. So much love and grief and ordinary life. My phone rang. Clara. My heart hammered as I answered. Hello? Dad? Her voice was soft, cautious. Where are you? Outside the old apartment. They're selling the building. Silence. Then, I heard, Evan told me. How is he? Angry, sad, trying to move on. She paused. He's seeing someone. A therapist, dealing with everything. That's good. Dad, She stopped, started again. I'm sorry I haven't called. I wanted to, but I was so angry. Still am, a little, but mostly I'm just sad. I'm sorry, Clara, for all of it, for what I did, for what I put you through. I know. I think I always knew you thought you were doing the right thing, protecting Evan. But Dad, what you did wasn't protection. It was destruction. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're still making excuses, still justifying it. She was right. Even now, part of me wanted to defend my actions, to explain how Marissa deserved it, how Evan needed to see the truth, but that was just ego talking, just pride refusing to admit complete defeat. You're right, I said. I was wrong. All of it. The manipulation, the revenge, the public humiliation. I could have found another way, should have found another way. But I was angry and hurt, and I wanted them to hurt too. Clara was quiet. Then, thank you for saying that. Does it change anything? I don't know. Maybe. Eventually. She sighed. Evan's not ready to talk to you yet. But I am, if you want. We could meet for coffee. Somewhere neutral. I'd like that. Okay. I'll text you a time and place. She paused. Dad? Are you okay? Really okay? No, but I'm trying to be. That's something, I guess. We hung up. I sat in my car, staring at the old building, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness, not relief, but hope. Small and fragile, but there. Maybe Ray was right. Maybe it wasn't too late. I started the car and drove home through the empty streets of Portland, past the shuttered shops and dark houses, toward whatever came next. The check from the building sale would arrive soon. I could use it to start over, to rebuild, to become someone my kids could be proud of again. Or I could use it to disappear, to run from what I'd done and never look back. The choice was mine. I thought about Sarah, about what she would tell me if she were here. She'd say that running solved nothing, that family was worth fighting for, even when, especially when, you'd screwed up. She'd also probably say that I was an idiot for doing what I did in the first place, but she'd say it with love, with forgiveness. I drove to the waterfront and parked. The harbor stretched out before me, dark and calm. A few boats bobbed at anchor, their lights reflected in the black water. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Coffee this Saturday? There's a place near my office. 10 a.m.? I typed back, I'll be there. Then I turned off my phone and just sat there, listening to the water lap against the docks, thinking about the long road ahead, the apologies I'd have to make, the trust I'd have to rebuild, the forgiveness I'd have to earn. It would take time, maybe years, maybe forever, but I had nothing but time now. And for the first time since the wedding, since the slap, since everything fell apart, I thought maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The harbor lights flickered in the darkness. I watched them until my eyes grew heavy, until the cold seeped into my bones, until I couldn't sit still anymore. Then I drove home through the quiet city, past the lives of people I'd never know, carrying stories I'd never hear. And I thought, tomorrow, I'll do better. Tomorrow I'll try. Tomorrow, I'll be the father my kids needed me to be all along. 6 months later, I got an envelope in the mail. Heavy cream cardstock, elegant script. My hands shook as I opened it. A wedding invitation, Clara's wedding, to someone named David Chen. No, scratch that, David Morrison. She was getting married in August at a vineyard in Cape Elizabeth. My name was on the guest list. I called her immediately. Clara? Hi, Dad. She sounded happy, nervous but happy. I got the invitation. Yeah, I wanted to tell you in person, but things have been crazy with planning. David and I decided to keep it small. Just close family and friends. I'm invited. Of course you're invited. You're my father. She paused. Evan's going to be there too, as a groomsman. I know things are still complicated between you two, but I'm hoping this can be a fresh start. For all of us. Does he know I'm coming? Yes, he's okay with it. Not thrilled, but okay. He's been working through a lot in therapy. We both have. I sat down on my couch. The new apartment was nicer than the studio. 1 bedroom, better neighborhood. The money from the building sale had given me breathing room. I'd used some of it for therapy, too. Dr. Patricia Hernandez twice a week, helping me untangle the mess I'd made. I don't know what to say, I told Clara. You don't have to say anything. Just show up. Be present. Be yourself. The good version of yourself. That's all I need. We talked for another 20 minutes. About the wedding, about David, about her job. Normal conversation. Easy. Like maybe we were finding our way back to each other. After we hung up, I sat there holding the invitation, cream cardstock, elegant script, my daughter's wedding. I hadn't been invited to Evan's wedding. Well, technically I had, but I'd been relegated to table 12, far from family. This time, Clara was putting me at table 3, with her godparents and a few other relatives, close to the front. A position of honor. The wedding was 2 months away. I had 2 months to prepare, to figure out what to say to Evan when I saw him, to be ready for the inevitable awkwardness, the tension, the careful politeness that would probably define our interactions for years. But I'd be there. That was what mattered. I called Ray. She invited me to the wedding. That's good news. Yeah, I think it is. I looked at the invitation again. Ray, do you think I can fix this? Really fix it? I think you're trying. That's more than a lot of people do. He paused. You were wrong, Arthur. What you did was wrong. But you're not irredeemable. You've just got a long way to go. How do I make it up to them? You don't. Not completely. Some things can't be made up, but you can be better going forward. You can show up when they need you. Support them without expectation. Love them without condition. Eventually, that might be enough. August arrived. The wedding day was perfect. Sunny, warm, a light breeze coming off the ocean. I wore my best suit, the one I'd bought specifically for this occasion. Navy blue, proper fit, new tie. I wanted to look like someone worth inviting, someone worthy of being called father. The vineyard was beautiful. Rows of grapevines stretched toward the water. White chairs set up in neat rows. Flowers everywhere. Clara had always loved flowers. I arrived early, sat in the back row. People trickled in, Clara's friends, David's family, distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. They nodded at me politely. Nobody mentioned the gala. Nobody brought up Marissa or Evan or the viral video. Either they didn't know or they were too polite to say. Then Evan arrived. He looked better than the last time I'd seen him, healthier. His suit fit well. He wasn't alone. He had a date, a woman with dark hair and a kind smile. She held his hand as they walked to their seats. Our eyes met across the aisle. For a moment I thought he might look away, pretend he hadn't seen me. But he didn't. He held my gaze, nodded once, and continued to his seat. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't hatred either. It was acknowledgement, recognition. a tiny step towards something better. The ceremony was lovely. Clara looked radiant in her dress. David looked nervous and happy. They said their vows, real vows, personal and heartfelt, not the generic stuff from Evan's wedding. When they kissed, everyone applauded. At the reception, I stayed quiet. Ate my dinner, drank sparingly, watched my daughter dance with her new husband. Evan stayed on the other side of the room. We didn't speak, but we were in the same space, breathing the same air, and nobody was getting slapped or humiliated. Progress. Toward the end of the night, Clara came over to my table. She'd kicked off her heels and her hair was coming loose from its updo. She looked exhausted and radiantly happy. "Thank you for coming, Dad. Thank you for inviting me." She sat down beside me. "I know this wasn't easy, for you or Evan, but it means everything to me that you're both here. You deserve a perfect day. It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn close." She took my hand. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, with Marissa and Evan and everything, and I realized something. You were trying to protect him. You went about it the wrong way, but the intention was love. Twisted, destructive love. But love. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, but it explains it, and maybe eventually Evan will see that too." She squeezed my hand. "Give him time. Give yourself time. Things don't heal overnight." "I know." She stood up, kissed my forehead, and went back to her guests. I watched her go, feeling something unfamiliar in my chest. Not quite peace, not quite redemption, but maybe the beginning of it. As the evening wound down and people started leaving, I found myself standing at the edge of the vineyard, looking out at the darkening ocean. The lights from the reception glowed warm behind me. Music and laughter drifted on the breeze. Evan appeared beside me. We stood in silence for a moment. "Nice wedding," he said finally. "Yeah. Clara seems happy." "She does." More silence. Then, "I'm still angry with you." "I know. What you did, exposing Marissa like that, it was cruel, manipulative, everything you taught me not to be." "You're right." He turned to look at me. "But I've been thinking, and I realized Marissa was who she was before you exposed her. You didn't make her embezzle money. You didn't make her cheat. You just revealed it. I could have told you privately. Could have given you the information and let you handle it. Instead, I turned it into a spectacle." "Yeah, you did." He looked back at the ocean. "My therapist says I need to figure out if I can forgive you. Not for your sake, for mine. Because carrying this anger around is exhausting. Have you figured it out?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it." He glanced at me. "The woman I came with, Jessica, she's a good person, kind, honest, nothing like Marissa. We're taking things slow." "That's good." "Yeah." He started to walk away, then stopped. "Dad, for what it's worth, I'm glad you came tonight. Clara was right to invite you." He left before I could respond. I stood there alone, watching the stars come out over the ocean, feeling the weight of the last year settle around my shoulders. I wasn't forgiven, might never be fully forgiven. But I'd been acknowledged, included, given a chance. That was more than I deserved. And maybe, with time and effort, and a whole lot of grace, it could be enough to build something new. Something better. The music from the reception changed to something slow and sweet. I turned and walked back toward the lights, toward the laughter, toward my daughter and the life she was building. Tomorrow, I'd go back to my apartment, to therapy, to the quiet work of becoming someone better. But tonight, I was at my daughter's wedding, and that was enough. I stood at the edge of the dance floor and watched Clara and David sway to the music, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her waist. Evan danced nearby with Jessica, both of them smiling. My children grown and independent and building lives that didn't revolve around me, exactly as it should be. The song ended. Another began, People clapped and laughed and celebrated. I found a chair in the corner and sat down, content to observe, to be present without demanding attention. An hour later, the reception wound down. People said their goodbyes. Clara hugged me before leaving for her honeymoon. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too." Evan shook my hand, firm grip, eye contact. "Take care of yourself." "You too." I drove home through the dark Maine countryside, past farmhouses and sleeping towns, and I thought, this is what redemption looks like. Not dramatic, not immediate, just small moments of grace, accumulated slowly over time. Sarah would have been proud of Clara's wedding. She would have loved David, and she probably would have forgiven me by now for the mess I made. I wasn't there yet. Wasn't sure I'd ever fully forgive myself. But I was trying. Every day, in small ways, I was trying. The harbor lights welcomed me back to Portland. I parked in my building's lot and climbed the stairs to my apartment. Inside, everything was neat and quiet. My life, reduced to essentials. Books, a few photos, the ghost of the man I used to be, and the outline of the man I was trying to become. I made tea, sat by the window, watched the city sleep. Tomorrow I had a therapy appointment. Dr. Hernandez would ask how the wedding went. I'd tell her about Evan's words, about Clara's hand in mine, about standing on the edge of the vineyard feeling something close to hope. She'd probably say I was making progress. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. And she'd be right. The night stretched on. I didn't sleep much. But I didn't mind. I had too much to think about. Too many possibilities to consider. Too many tomorrows to prepare for. Eventually, dawn broke over Portland. Pink and gold light spilled across the harbor, touching the boats and buildings with gentle color. A new day. Another chance. I showered, dressed, made coffee, checked my phone, a text from Clara. Made it to the airport. Thank you again for coming. It meant everything. Love you. I typed back, love you too. Have a wonderful honeymoon. Then I sat at my small kitchen table, drinking my coffee, watching the morning light grow stronger, and I thought about the invitation that had started everything, Evan's wedding, Marissa's cruelty, my revenge, but also Clara's invitation, the one that offered redemption, the one that said, you're still my father, and that still matters. I finished my coffee, put on my jacket, grabbed my keys. I had errands to run, a life to live, repairs to make. The work of redemption wasn't finished. Maybe it never would be. But I was here. I was trying. And for now, that was enough. I locked my apartment and headed down to the street, into the morning light, into whatever came next. The city moved around me, people heading to work, lives unfolding, stories being written. I was just one more person trying to make things right. Just one more father who'd failed and was learning to do better. The invitation sat on my kitchen counter, a reminder. Cream cardstock, elegant script, a daughter's faith in her father's ability to change. I wouldn't let her down. Not again.